Hello guys, this is Big Head Django. I hope you all are doing fantastic. Today I'll be showing you a full guide on the Drift Club story, more specifically on how to 3-star every chapter of the Drift Club story. Completing the story gets you the Ford Mustang Mach-E, and 3-starring every chapter gets you progress points for Series 6, so do not miss out on completing this right now. And of course, if you find the video helpful, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment. Before we get started, some pointers on drifting. There are far better drifters out there than me in this game, so if you want a full drifting guide, I'm sure you can find one out there. This guide is going to focus on how to help you 3-star every single chapter of the Drift Club story. That said, drifting is about going sideways, burning some rubber. You do need some throttle control, so I recommend a controller, although you can do it on a keyboard as well. The game has very good input control for keyboard. I don't know how they did it, but it does. You need two things to score points. You need speed and you need to throw the back end out. You can either do that using the brakes or the handbrake. This guide is aimed at people who are new to Forza Horizon 5, or perhaps who are not very good at drifting, or perhaps simply don't like drifting and just want to find the easiest, quickest way to 3-star all the story chapters. But before going further, let's look at the control settings I'm using. Now, while it is recommended to use manual, I've done this on automatic to show you that it is possible to do it on automatic. You want to have ABS turned on, even though it's recommended to have ABS turned off. Having ABS turned on gives you better control of the car and makes it easy to throw a drift. If you have ABS turned off and go hard on the brakes, it is going to lock up your steering and bring your drift to an untimely end. So that is something to keep in mind. Also, keep rewind turned on, because if you lose control of the car, if you go off-road or completely lose a good drift you had going, then rewinding will help you undo that without any negative consequences, and that's it. Oh, whoops, gotta pretend I always play on unbeatable. Let's get started with the first chapter. This one is the easiest, although I don't think this is the best car to introduce drifting to new players. It has a tendency to spin out quite easily. You only need 50,000 points for this first chapter, and once you have those points, you can simply drive to the final destination point and it will complete the chapter. You don't have to avoid any of the obstacles here. You can throw the back end around either by using the steering or using the brakes if ABS is turned on, or using the handbrake. Please do note that the X button is my handbrake, whereas the default for you would be the A button. By far the easiest of all chapters in this story.
Keep at it. Head back to the top if you want another run.
Moving on to chapter 2. Now this is where you're actually going to learn how to drift. The first thing you want to do is not drift, but to get the car into second gear. And the ideal speed you want to be at is between 60 and 70 miles per hour. Once you have that ideal speed, that is when you start throwing the back end around. Anytime you drop below 60 miles per hour in this car, simply try and straighten it out and gain that speed back, because otherwise you're not going to be able to drift as well. Drifting is more about maintaining that speed instead of sliding around on the road. So keep the car in second gear, above 60 miles per hour. Anytime you drop below 60, make sure to regain that speed before you start trying to drift again. The road is quite wide, you have plenty of space to move around.
Stock, of course. This is all-wheel drive. And pricey. Usually you see them on the pro drifting circuit. Luckily, we had one knocking around the festival, so I had a look at it for you. The GTR is famous as a modular platform, and that's not just because of the wheelbase and the organic grip. The VR38 DET engine is an exceptional starting point for a drift pit. turbos can easily make 700 bhp. You need to build for that amount of power at both ends of the intake exhaust throw, of course. The final analysis, not a cheap drift platform, but definitely a good one.
Now let's move on to the third chapter, and this one is where things get tricky. This is a fairly difficult car to drift on automatic. Same thing applies, you need to first keep it straight till you hit second gear, and the ideal speed now is above 70 miles per hour. So anytime you drop below 70, make sure to regain that speed, and that will help you keep the drift going. One other thing for this chapter is that it can be very easy to go off-road. The car is quite powerful. A very easy way to avoid that is to use the middle yellow line on the road as your guide. As long as you don't steer too far away from the yellow middle line on the road, you will be absolutely fine. So instead of trying to follow the road and the turns, follow the yellow line. Use that as a guide. Only use the road on either side to drift. Don't try and drift through the corners like you would expect an experienced drifter to do, especially if you are not one. No shame in that, just trying to get those 3 stars on every chapter.
Alejandra said this was her first drift car. That makes sense. Abundant parts, reliable, and easy to work on too. Oh, if you're interested in how we calculate drift scores, it's about speed and angle in the drift. That means there's a maximum theoretical value for a stretch of road, of course. Excellent lateral velocity management. That's absolutely at the top end of my projections. So, this is an interesting technical challenge. Drifting uphill. The additional inertia is a very intriguing factor in how you achieve the optimal corner approach.
Now for chapter 4, halfway done. This car is actually quite fast, so take your time to get used to that. You may have to restart this once or twice. The ideal gear is third, and you want to be above 80 miles per hour at least. Same tip as before, use the yellow middle line of the road as your guide. Drift around that line instead of following the driving line. Drift on either side of the yellow line. If you drop down below 80 miles per hour, it's fine, straighten out the car, get that speed back, and then start drifting again. You get a fairly long route for this chapter, so it's very easy to hit that 3-star target.
The trick here, I find, is how faster cars need to balance forward velocity against the optimal angle. You are managing it nicely. This is a really tough corner. Be ready to functionally destabilize the rear. takes us into the upper projection range. Tunnel ahead, you'll miss some lovely corners if you take it though. Topped out, but keep going for the,
For the leaderboards.
yes.
Chapter 5 is a doozy. You need 1 million points in order to hit the target. However, don't fret, there is more than enough road to be able to do this. And on top of that, this is the easiest car to drift in all of these chapters. The ideal gear for this car is third, but if you're playing on automatic, you may not always be able to keep that third gear. So we're going to use second. Second and about 70 miles per hour is where you want to be at. So keep that speed up, stay above 70 miles per hour, use the yellow middle line as your guide, drift on either side of that line and you'll be golden. This is a fairly long route, so take your time, don't be intimidated by that 1 million target, very easy car to drift.
Bad for what's basically 1.5 tons of 2015 Mustang GT. Just wait until you see... No, let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's all downhill from here. I mean that in the topographical sense. Watch the corners though. Can't drift if we hit trees. the projection. I think we can do better, though. That's over 1 million drift points. That much tyre smoke must be visible from the city. I mean, if anyone was watching, which they're not.
Now the final chapter, the one we've all been waiting for. This chapter is divided into 3 parts. The first 2 parts you simply have to drive to the destination and the drift target is very easy to achieve. So I am going to skip through both of these parts and simply go ahead to the part that matters for scoring drift points. Despite being the start of this story, I quite honestly do not like how this car performs in rear wheel drive, and 3-starring this last chapter is more annoying than difficult. One thing you need to know is that this car will drift on its own. So instead of trying to make it drift, just drive it and it'll do the rest on its own. Do not try to drift the car at all until you get to the tunnel. And once you do get to the tunnel, then yes, you can throw it around a bit. You only need between about 10 and 50% throttle input, and you want to focus on quick tapping the throttle to avoid giving the rear wheels too much power, then losing control of the car.
Very hard left, then right, then sideways into the tunnel. Ahead here, and we're heading for where we started.
If you're still having trouble with this final chapter, there is a much easier way to complete this, and I will show you how to do that now. While the game forces you to switch to rear wheel drive, don't start driving and instead switch back to all wheel drive, and that's it. Now you can take the designated path and it will be much easier getting that drift target. However, a wonderful thing about story chapters in this game is that you don't always have to take the designated path. So if you take the path that I'm about to show you, you'll be able to hit that target much more easily.
Careful as you manage the inertia transfer. Very hard left, then right, then sideways into the tunnel.
So you take the left at the final intersection before leaving the city, and you simply drift all the way down this road, and that's it. It's a very wide road, very easy to drift on, and you can keep your speed up. Finally, when you get to the end, you'll have this tunnel on the right side, and as you can see on the map, the destination target is right down that road in the middle. So you can either drive to the destination target, or you can go back down the road we just came from and score some more points if you like. So even if in the future the devs do realize the mistake that they've made, even if they force you to stay in rear wheel drive, you can take this path and make it much easier on yourself to score those points, get that 3-star target. And that is it. So that is it for the whole guide. I really do hope I made it easy for you to 3-star those chapters. If you find this video useful, be sure to subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and leave a comment down below. I'd also like to hear your thoughts on the Ford Mustang Mach-E. In my opinion, when tuned properly, I think it's a very fine drift car, very easy to control. It may not get you the highest score in a drift zone, but it's actually quite fun to drift around in. Let me know how you feel about it. And that's it for this video. This is Big Head Django. Keep throwing that rear end around.